what we do is we educate children from about the age of 3 to the age of about 12 or 13, and we do that very well, and we've made conscious decisions not to go beyond that. We're also at a very elementary and elemental level a progressive school. We were founded in the progressive education tradition of John Dewey and by our founders, and I think have stayed true to those traditions and expressed them in the Miquon way, in a variety of ways. But I think the fact that we still are a school that doesn't have letter grades, where learning isn't competitive, where children have choices and make choices throughout the day and throughout their years here. We're a place where we value childhood greatly, and where that's expressed in our commitment to play, and that kids really do have leisure time during the day, that they have time to play in the morning, they have time at lunch. We recognize that children have a somewhat separate culture from our adult culture, and that we honor that and give that culture room and life.
I would say that probably our kids leave here with only the foggiest notion of how to diagram a sentence, but with a tremendous sense of the breadth and depth of the natural world, of mathematics, of the power and beauty of language, and they get those other pieces very quickly. I'd say we do very little teaching of what I call school encapsulated skills, the things that you learn in school so you can produce them in school, and that's it.
To me, progressive education is much more than a label. It's really thinking about the whole child, thinking about things that interest the child. And I think that part of it that's particularly interesting to me is the group sense that grows out of working together on common projects. But I think that progressive education has much more emphasis on kind of joint figuring things out together and doing things together.
I would say that it's child-centered, that it's learning-centered rather than teaching-centered, that it is aimed at not producing a particular kind of child or kind of citizen. If we look at education as partly being training for being a useful member of your society, I think we're a little more flexible than some institutions about what that society may end up being.
Now, within that, we have a very complex and highly structured development of curriculum. This is not just something that we do ad lib as we come in on a Monday morning, but we're planning carefully with the children's interests and strengths in mind.
Community is as instructive to our kids as our curriculum is. In fact, that community is very much a part of our curriculum. Kids see it in our go to the school assembly, where a kindergartner and a sixth grader can stand on somewhat even footing around an issue.
Of course, we exchange and share our views on children, but it's very much a two-way process. The parents are invited into the classroom, not only to bring their talents and interests and their concerns, but to learn with the teacher, with the child, who their child really is, what are the strengths of that child, how do they best learn. And we address those kind of issues in various ways.
Kids are, as I said before, much more sophisticated, but they're still little children, and they're not ready for all the bombardment of academics. I think we just need to be very careful with it, because they will absorb what they're ready to absorb, and they can understand a lot more, but their interests are still at a level where they have to explore them.
It's often assumed that because one does a lot of enriching activities, that one leaves out the developing of these basic skills, when in fact we're doing it all the time. We may study, for example, let's take reading, we may do it from a literature-based approach and a whole language approach, which simply means that as language is natural to the child, we capitalize on opportunities to focus in and develop certain things within a framework.
I try to have a conference with every child in the classroom about halfway through the year, and that falls halfway between the two parent conferences that we have in the spring and the fall. And I think it's important to do, partly because it really empowers the child to feel that they have a special time that is set aside to really look at progress and talk about things with the teacher.
First of all, we have a lot of sharing. First thing in the morning, we have a 15-20 minute opportunity to share what it is that's important to us. In this way, you establish two things. You encourage children to become invested in the program by bringing who they are to the program. You also give them an opportunity to articulate problems and creative thoughts. You have an opportunity to affirm who the child is. The whole environment is structured in a way that we're able to work with small groups. So we work in half groups a great deal of the time, which means in my case that I'm left with 10 or 11 children in a half group. And that enables you to plan and to focus in on individuals in a way that is rare. Then, as the child comes in, what the teacher has to do is to look very closely and identify the strengths. And every child has strengths. Every child has something, a quality that is unique and special and potentially very powerful. And it's the teacher's job to identify that and to work on it.
It's very exciting to see a child with just a little basic phonics experience to start sounding words out and write a word or even a letter which represents a word, and be able to read the text back and know what they were meaning to say. And in the beginning, it's very difficult for a teacher to read what they might have in mind, but each time they try it, it goes a little further.
It's kind of remarkable to me to see how much it has filled out by the end of first grade and the beginning of second, and how by third their spelling is a great deal of it is conventional correct spelling. And as I look at the old children as they get even older and see their work, they become quite proficient with their spelling. I think the real advantage of using invented spelling in writing is the breadth of vocabulary that these kids use in their writing. These kids can write anything that they can say.
Fourth and fifth graders are quite sophisticated readers, usually, and yet they are still of an age when they can remember very clearly being read to before they learn to read, and they still can enjoy the kind of books that kindergartners and nursery children would have read to them. And so we started out by picking out some of our favorite books of that kind. I brought in some and they talked about some, and we read a few books together, and we tried to figure out what it was that makes a successful little kid's book. And then they went on to write their own stories, and did, I must say, I think a wonderful job of it. They were very creative. They really picked up on some of the ingredients that we had talked about. And the next step is obviously to take it up to the kindergarten and have the children read to the kids.
I just would like them to know that the world is very big and very interesting, and there are a lot of interesting people in it now, and there have been a lot of interesting people in the past, and all these different people have brought things to our culture. I think that's probably the main goal for me, to gain a respect for other cultures and other people. What I'm trying to do in math is move away from this is the right answer and this is the wrong answer to kind of getting our heads together and thinking about what makes sense. There's a lot of talk these days about whole language, and I'm feeling as if we're also learning how to do whole math. And the question that you say with new readers is, does this make sense? And the question you say with new mathematicians is, does that make sense? Does this make sense? Do other people agree? What do you think? So that we do a lot of problem solving together. Inevitably, as this happens, as one person is proving it, the other person who got a different answer will say, oh, I agree now, I agree with her. Or the person going through the explanation will say, oh, I see, I made a mistake, I agree with so-and-so. And I have never found a time where the kind of common mathematical thinking of the group didn't cause the whole group to agree on the proper way to solve the problem.
And teaching science is, I think, not so different than what the school hopes to accomplish with kids altogether. I want to produce kids who are excited about learning and discovering new things, who want to explore, for whom learning is an active process, not a passive process. And I want to encourage that in any way I can, which I've discovered after years of trying lots of different things, generally happens by kids owning their own learning.
I find that the performance anxiety often comes from the teacher. It comes from somewhere a person says that this piece of material is more important than the performer. And I don't believe that that's ever true.
The art program at Miquon, for me, is about kids getting interested in art in hopefully a lifelong way. I mean, I would love to make them all into artists. That's not going to happen. But I would like them to understand the nature of the process of making art and maybe bring some of that into their lives, whatever they choose to pursue. I tend to think that the way that happens is by doing things. I'm a process person. I believe strongly that kids learn by doing things that relate to them personally. So art provides a natural place for that to happen.
Every kid's not going to be a good soccer player. Every kid's not going to be a good basketball or baseball player, and I try not to focus on those too much. And hopefully when they learn to extend that risk-taking ability a little bit, you know, they identify it with something physical, they learn to enjoy the physical motion and what it brings to their life, and as they grow older, you know, they'll seek out and look for physical outlets, and I think that's the goal continuum.
I've had a lot of children come and say, how do I get somebody to play with me? And to us it's a simplistic question, but to children it's real. They don't understand sometimes how it works if they haven't been surrounded by kids at home or whatever. So I think a lot of kindergarten is the whole issue of socialization and helping them learn how to move in with other kids and how to be a good friend themselves. And as they move along, they then feel so much better about themselves and feel confident, and that puts them in beautiful shape for all the other learning that will hopefully take place.
We do expect them to be able to handle themselves responsibly on the playground. We expect them to do their jobs, you know, get the lunch, set the table clear, all that sort of thing, which they do very well and quite matter-of-factly. We expect that they will learn, and they do.
I think that we have kids who go out believing that they can be movers and shakers and find that, yes, it really does work, that they can present their views and defend their views and ask for change and also handle it when they don't get it.
Graduation is a real celebration of and a culmination of a child's experience at the school. It's a time for the whole community to come together, and it really is a time to recognize the special contributions of each individual child. It also is a time that the school asks the child to reflect on his or her experience.
Someone once said, "Tell me, I forget. Show me, I remember. Involve me, I understand." In many places I've been told many things, and I've been shown even more. But at Miquon, I've been involved. As I climb to the next rung on the ladder of my education, I know Miquon has given me the best foundation on which to stand. I've had 7 years of good times and great memories. Right now I feel more love than I've ever felt before. I know this feeling